Hello, my algebra class. This is interesting, isn't it? So I'm going to do my absolute best to help you get through a few more lessons because I want you to get through this year. I do not want to have to repeat Algebra 1, and I'm sure you don't either. So if you'll follow along, I think we'll do okay together. I want to let you know that if you have questions, you can email me. Again, my email address is tburke002@gmail.com. Or again, you can text me, and I know all of you have my number, and so you can text me any questions that you may have, and I will do my best to answer them just as quick as I can. I don't carry my algebra book with me everywhere I go, so it may take me a moment to get back to it, but I will do my absolute best. Not going to overwhelm you. I'm just going to do basically a lesson at a time. I don't plan to give you tons of work to do. I just want to keep plodding forward. So, if you want, and I encourage you to do so, I know it's weird, but it'll be normal in about 5 minutes. But turn over to page 251, and we're going to look at our next lesson. And I know that Alexis went over a few things with you, but we're going to start here just so we're all together. On page 251, and we're going to look there at the first paragraph and kind of skim through it, but it is trinomials with a second independent variable. Love these fancy words. But basically, a trinomial is going to have 3 terms and a second independent variable, meaning that it's going to have, again, a letter at the end of it. So far, all we've done is things like x squared plus 3x plus 2. Now we're going to have x squared plus 3x plus 2, let me start over. X squared plus 3xy plus 2y squared. So we're going to add a letter at the end, which basically is the same thing we've been doing, but with a letter at the end. So it's going to be okay. So let's read the first paragraph. It says this. Trinomials with a second independent variable are written in the general form ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared. Remember, those a, b, and c represent the numbers. They are factored using the same general method from the previous sections, beginning by recognizing the basic pattern of the factorization, which is ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared, which will equal something x plus something y times something x plus something y. Each binomial factor will be the sum or difference of an x term and a y term. The x terms are assumed to be positive. The y terms may be either positive or negative. The x squared, if the x squared term is not positive, then of course we're going to put a negative on the outside and make it positive because we don't like to be negative. We're very positive people. So, if you look at the first illustration there in your book, it says this. It says, example 7.7, factor the polynomial x squared minus 3xy plus 2y squared. Now, we know automatically if we're going to factor that down. Now, remember, the first thing we do is we always look to see if there's something we can factor out of everything. Well, there's nothing. You don't have an x and everything. You don't have a y and everything, and 2 and 3 is your only numbers. So we're going to, again, break this down into 2 binomials. Now, what times what is x squared? Oh, very good. I heard you. It's x times x. And then our signs are going to be what? Well, we have to look. The last term is a positive 2y squared. So if that's positive, we look at its neighbor to see what the sign's going to be. And we see that middle term is a negative. So we know a negative times a negative is a positive. But a negative plus a negative will equal a negative. So we know that our signs are going to be a negative, negative. Now, what times what is y squared? Well, that's the easy part. Y times y. So now we just have to figure out that 2 there, which is pretty simple. What times what is 2? It has to be 2 times 1. And so our answer is going to be x minus y and x minus 2y. Why is that? No pun intended. Because, again, if you FOIL that, x times x is x squared. Your outer is going to give you x times negative 2y, which is negative 2xy. Your inner is going to be negative y times x, which is negative xy. A negative 2xy and a negative xy is negative 3xy. Remember, this is all that part where I said keep all your letters in alphabetical order, no matter which way you multiply them. If you keep them in alphabetical order, then they're going to work together. And so you'll see then we have our answer, and we're able to factor that. All right. Now, you say, well, that's simple. It is, and that's really all you have to do. Of course, it's going to get harder. But you have other examples there. If you want to look there on the next page, on page 252, on example 7.7c. Look at it with me if you would. It says here 2x squared minus xy minus 6y squared. Now again, we know if we're going to break this down, we can't factor anything out, so we'll do the easy part. The easy part is x times 2x has to be my only option here to get 2x squared. Now, what signs I'm going to use? Well, I know a what times a what's a negative. Well, it has to be a positive times a negative. Now, I may have to switch these signs around to get the right middle term, but I know it's going to be a positive times a negative. Now, what times what gives me a 6y squared? Well, the easy part is, obviously, a y times y is my y squared, so I just have to figure out this whole 6 thing. But there's a 2 in there. So I'm going to have to do a lot of trial and error until I find the right combination to find that middle term of a negative xy, which really there's a 1 there, so I need a negative 1. So we can plug in all kinds of different types of numbers. There's all kinds of different kinds of options. We can put, obviously you can be 6 times 1, 1 times 6, 3 times 2, 2 times 3. But eventually, by trial and error, I'll be able to find that the correct answer has to be 2x, and then at the other term, we're going to multiply it times an x. And in order to get the right answer, I'm going to have to go 2x times a negative 2y, which will give me negative 4y, and then a positive x times a positive 3y, which will give you a 3xy, which a negative 4xy and a positive 3xy gives me a negative 1xy. And so then I am able to have my answer. So now there may be some times, like on the example on 7.7d, that we may have to factor something. And so again, notice that example, we have 10x cubed, negative 36x squared y, negative 16xy squared. Now the first thing I have to do in this question is I'm going to see what can I factor out. So I look at it and I know that I can factor out a 2 because 2 goes into 10, 36, and 16. There's also an x in every one of those, so I'm able to factor out an x as well. So I'm going to factor out the 2x, which leaves me with 5x squared, negative 18xy, negative 8y squared. And so now all I have to do is break down that 5x squared, negative 18xy, negative 8y squared. And when I do that, you'll notice there I'm going to multiply, obviously 5x times x is my only option for 5x squared. My signs have to be a positive and a negative. Then I have all these different options, which takes a lot of trial and error. Finally, we get the right answer. And we know that the right answer is going to be factored out 2x, and then x minus 4y, and then 5x plus 2y. You check it just to make sure. X times 5x is 5x squared, and then x times your outer terms, 2y, is positive 2xy, and then you have a negative 20xy, and a positive 2 and a negative 20 is going to be a negative 18, which is exactly what we needed. All right, and then you have the negative 8y squared. So that brings us down now to the questions. Let's do the homework. So we're ready? Here we go. Practice 7.7, page 253. Look at it with me if you would. Number 1 says x squared plus xy minus 6y squared. First thing we always ask ourselves is, can I factor anything out? And the answer is No. I cannot factor anything out, so I'm going to go ahead and break that down into two binomials, and I'm going to put, first of all, that x times x has to be my only option for x squared. Then I have to determine what my signs are going to be. So I'm going to use a positive times a negative because that's my only options in order to get a negative answer. And so I know I'm going to have an x plus and an x minus. Now comes that whole weird part. So we're going to look at it there, and we need 6y squared. So I know my options for 6. Now the y is easy. I'm going to throw the y on both of them. Y times y, of course. My 6 is going to be either 1 times 6, 6 times 1, 2 times 3, or 3 times 2. So I got to find out which combination will give me a positive xy. I can plug in numbers a few different ways. Some of them will work. Some of them will not. I'm always going to check it by foiling it to see if it works, until finally I'm going to get the right combination, which is going to be an x plus 3y and an x minus 2y. There's quite a few more of these, and I'm going to let you do numbers 2 through 10. All right, you're going to do 2 through 10, and if you would, do 2 through 10, and then we'll go on from there. So if you want to just pause the video, do 2 through 10, and we'll see how you did, and then we'll go on. So ready? Hit pause now. So we want to check. I'm not going to go through all those. I'll do that when we come back. All right, but let's just make sure you're doing it right. Let's go with number 10. All right, so look at number 10 with me. The question says 6x squared plus 31xy plus 35y squared. Now, in order to solve this question, we're first of all going to see, can I factor anything out of this? Well, there's a 6, 31, and 35. There's no numbers. My x's all don't live in Texas, so I'm missing an x there. And my y's, I have 2 but not 3, so we aren't going to do it, and I hope you understand why. So now we're going to break this down, and when we break it down, all right, we're going to, again, we know that the x times x is x squared. We know our signs all have to be positive. That's the easy part. And we know we need a y times a y. And so now the question is, how are we going to get 6 and 35 and the combination that will give us 31? Well, for our options for our first terms here, we know it's either going to be 1 times 6 or 3 times 2. And if you're like me, it's never the 1 times 6. All right, so we're going to try 3 times 2. So I'm going to put a 3 here and a 2 there. Thankfully, to find 35, my only options are 1 times 35 and 5 times 7, I believe, is my only option. And if you're like me, you're like, it's never the 1. So we're going to go 5 times 7. So I'm going to plug a 5 in times a 7. Now, the way to check it is by foiling. So let's see how we did. All right, we know our first terms is going to give us 6x squared. We know our last terms is going to give us 35y squared. And so now it comes down to the outer inner. Our outer terms is going to give us a 21xy. And my inner terms is going to give me a 10xy, which together gives me a 31xy, which is dun, 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 what I needed. Sweet. First time. All right, so I know that the answer is correct, and so I have 3x plus 5y and 2x plus 7y as the answer, and I didn't even look at the book. I just did it, and I did it right the first time. Pat myself on the back. All right, so again, if you want to check number 2, see if you did it right, the answer should be x plus 2y, x plus y. Number 3 should be 2x minus y, x plus y. Those are easy. Number 9, just want to see if you're doing it right, is 2x minus 5y, and then 2x plus 3y. All right, so again, I hope you got those right. Hopefully you got all of them right. But look at those again. You need to have numbers 1 through 10 done when you come back. Now, if you turn the page over, you're going to see that there's some review lessons. All right. I do want you to do page number 254, and I want you to do numbers 1 through 12. All right, 1 through 12. Numbers 1 through 8 is just foiling. So first, outer, inner, last. I think you can handle that. All right, I'll show you one real quick. Number 1, x minus 3y times 2x plus y. And again, you're going to multiply your first terms, which is going to give you 2x squared. And then your outer terms, which is going to give you a positive xy. Your inner terms, which is going to give you a negative 6xy. And then your last terms, which is going to give you a negative 3y squared. And then when you put your outer and inner together, you're going to have 2x squared, negative 5xy, negative 3y squared. Why is that? Because you have positive 1xy and a negative 6. Positive 1 and negative 6 gives you negative 5. And then you have your variables, which is xy. All right? So again, page 254, numbers 1 through 12. All right, now tomorrow, what I want you to do, all right, is to do page 254. And you'll notice down there that you're going to have, again, there's 30 questions. No, I'm not having all 30, all right? But I do want you to do, all right, if you want to do the odd ones, because it's a very odd time of year with us being out of school. So you can do the odd ones, and if you'll do 1 through 30, the odd ones, that would be great. And I'll tell you what, you can do 5 of the even ones for a bonus. When we get back, I'll rate them, and hopefully you get a good grade on that. All right? So that's that lesson. I hope you do well. That's for today and tomorrow. All right. So, you know, I'm talking Monday, the 23rd, and then that gives you your work for the 24th as well, which is some good review ones. All right. So if you have a question, if you get hung up on one, get a hold of me. All right. I'll help you out. You know, and I'll try to get you through it. So it's going to be okay. I promise. Algebra's cool.